Welcome to the Duke Trap Studios, home of the Keystone Experience, brought to you by Creek Archery. Find your passion, then hunt it down. Hillview Motors, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Remember, Hillview has it. What's going on, everybody? Hey, we got the owner, operator, and guide of Silent Mountain Outfitters. Tom, how's it going, buddy?
Good, Rob, and yourself?
Oh, doing good down here. Couple more weeks and we'll be bow hunting down here. I'm sure you guys get a little earlier jump than we do.
Probably pretty similar. Like we'll be starting early September here, so probably pretty close to you guys as well.
Okay. So I guess we might as well start from the very beginning. How did you get into hunting, or what made you get into hunting?
Well, for the hunting side of it, definitely it's run in the family for many a year. Just like a lot of people getting into the hunting, the fishing, the outdoors. My grandfather, my father, both avid hunters, and it was just kind of only natural that I also had that passion when I was a kid and was itching to get out there, and had some good teachers, and not just my family, but I had a couple mentors I ran into as I got older, and but the passion was there to begin with. And just like a lot of hunters, I mean, I started with hunting gophers and fishing out of little creeks when I was a youngster, and I think even the first time I ran into a grizzly bear, I think I would have been 7 or 8 years old. I was grouse hunting with a pellet gun and had our big German Shepherd with us, and we went into some thick brush looking for ruffed grouse, and the dog found a grizzly cub instead. So it got pretty interesting, pretty hairy, pretty quick. But luckily, we went opposite ways, and no harm, no foul either way. So, but yeah, it just came naturally. And then I was lucky enough to have family and friends support that passion, and it just continued on, and finally turned into guiding and a career. So that's kind of the big story in a small shell kind of deal.
So you own and operate a guide service up in British Columbia.
Yep.
Do you have any other? Is it in any other part of Canada or just in British Columbia?
Yeah, so we have 2 areas back to back in British Columbia, like you said, and yeah, just in BC. I ranch part time as well, so we've got a couple hundred head of cattle that we run in the off season. But yeah, generally, we're in the bush pretty hard from, I would say, April to June, and then September, October for most of our fall hunts. And then we do our mountain lion, lynx, bobcat, and wolf hunts more November, December, once the snow hits the ground in our area. So, yeah.
So if I were to want to come to British Columbia to hunt, let's say elk, where do I start? How do I go about getting there?
Yeah. So, I mean, and it's a great question. And I find, first and foremost, like if they're, anywhere, any province, any territory, any state, I'm sure in the States, you guys kind of have a outfitter association for most states, I would think. So, if it was me personally wanting to hunt in British Columbia, first thing I would do is I'd go to the GOABC website, which is the Guide Outfitters Association of British Columbia. So to start with just general contacts, you can go to their website, and they've got an outfitter directory basically. So it goes throughout all areas of BC, tells you what species they offer, their contact info, and it also shows that they are a member of good standing to their code of standards and ethics as being part of that association. So that's a great place to just start if you're basically throwing a pin at the wall. Okay, well, I love BC. I want to hunt elk there. That's a great place to start. If you have no other contacts, word of mouth's great too. Obviously, if you have friends or family that have hunted with certain outfitters and it's been a good story, that's another way. But from there, what I'd recommend is, you narrow down what area or what kind of hunt, for what species, obviously, you're looking for. And then you kind of go through a few outfitters, call them, talk to them. You can email, but honestly, still at the end of the day, calling them on the phone is the best way to get a good feel, or meet them obviously at a hunting show. But not everybody goes to the shows as much anymore, just because the way the world's changed. Online bookings have really taken off. But the problem with the online stuff, obviously, is now there's more and more scams. There's more and more gray areas for miscommunication, that kind of thing. So I highly recommend you actually physically call the person, or if you can, meet them in person. From there, they're going to tell you, exactly what they're about. They'll probably send you some more information. References are key. If you can talk to a few people that have hunted with them, and not only people that have hunted successfully, I highly recommend talking to a few guys, and ask the outfitter, say, well, do you have a couple guys that weren't successful? Because that's a huge, if you can find an outfitter that's had a couple guys that didn't necessarily get their animal, but they want to go back and they love the hunt, everything was good, that's a really good sign. That's the kind of outfitter you want to go with. So yeah, talking to the guy up front, getting some references, and kind of doing a bit of online research. Just about every outfitter I know has a website, and it's got photos, has some basic information. Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, that's where I would start at the very least. So.
Okay. And to get a tag or a license, do I have to buy a general hunting license for BC and then add the tags on top of that, or do I let you do all that for me?
So that's the beauty with BC is, so as an outfitter, we'll apply for your tag, your license, everything. So if you're booked, as soon as you show up, we give you your tag and off you go. So it's a bit simplified there, like meaning the application for the tag and all the paperwork involved is typically done through the outfitter. Once you have your hunting license, like if the first time you hunt in BC, you'll get your hunting license number, it's called your FWID. And so once you have that number, you're in the system. So if you hunt in BC again, that's the number they're going to want. So that's something to remember, and specifically for British Columbia. So you can hunt with different outfitters still in BC, but that's your British Columbia hunting license number forever, basically, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
it's a pretty simple process.
We have a CID number here in Pennsylvania. That number is your number for the rest of your life. You get your fishing license with that number, you get your hunting license with that number. So
okay, yeah.
Basically
so
the same
probably
deal.
Very similar, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
nice.
Then you do all the paperwork, I guess. Say I want to come up there, I want to hunt elk. You do all that stuff for me. You need money up front to pay for those?
Yeah, so typically, and just about every outfitter up here that I know operates the same way. So typically they'll want a down payment to physically book. So what happens, so say you wanted to book an elk hunt right here, right now. I'd say, great, okay, you're ready to book. So I'll email or mail you a booking contract with basically, it's just your basic information that I'll need to apply for your tag and your license, and a basic liability waiver, which is industry standard across the board. I'm sure they have that pretty much everywhere. And so for us, like typically we'll do a 1/3 deposit of the overall hunt price to book, and then another third about 6 months before, the final third about a month before the hunt. And so most outfitters, they kind of keep a payment schedule similar to that. Some want 50%, some want a quarter, some want a third. everyone's slightly different that way, but the process is pretty much the same. Yeah.
Okay. Then I guess you'll send me a list of what you recommend I bring as far
Yep.
as gear.
Yes, you bet. But that's also why it's really important, I find, to not just talk to the outfitter, once or twice via phone. Like as your hunt's approaching, you're going to have more questions pop up, and as an outfitter, it's expected and wanted that the client asks us some questions. We'll give you basic information, a basic gear list, um, you know, as much information as we can. But what we're going to depend on the client a little bit is, say you have an allergy, or you have a knee that's a bit weak from an operation, or I'm just spitballing some examples.
Right.
But it's the little details like that that sometimes can make or break your hunt. So it's important for the outfitter to know all these little things, because we can often tailor the hunt for what you want or what you're dealing with. For instance, even just as a really basic example, with horse use. I have some clients, they absolutely love to use horses. I have other clients that I don't want to be near one of those things. So a lot of this information, it's nice to know both ways before the hunt even takes place. So then there's no missing information. There's no drama, basically, right?
Right.
You as the client, you know everything you need to know. You know what to expect, what to bring. And as an outfitter, it's the same thing. There isn't a key piece of information that I'm missing that can make your trip the best it can be, basically. So, yeah.
So I guess we got the list now. We're getting ready to go. I did read through like some of your stuff, and it said to bring a pair of boots that were broke in.
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys don't realize that don't buy a pair of boots the week before you're leaving. I buy my boots this time of year, and I take a brand new pair of waterproof boots and I stick them in a 5-gallon bucket of water, and then I put them on my feet with the heaviest socks I have, and I go walk around the neighborhood, and I do that 2 or 3 days in a row. To me, that has seemed to break my boots in a lot faster, and then I just go back through and I snow seal them and don't touch them again until hunting season, so
100%. And that's going to save your feet, especially on these more mountain style hunts, good ankle support. But I think another note worth mentioning in regards to the boots, personally speaking, I'm not saying I wear my hiking boots 24/7, but I like to wear mine almost all year round, on and off, intermittently. And not only is that helping you break your boots in for you, but I find too, hiking boots can be pretty darn heavy. Like, I know the technology is good, but it gets you used to packing that weight on your feet basically a lot sooner. And also you can test, like even down to the little details like socks, right?
Right.
You might put one set of socks on and holy, your foot's blistering up and you're in pain. And it's better to know that well before your hunt, and you'll tailor your success basically by being more prepared. So, yeah.
So the elk hunt would be September, or is that later?
Yeah, so we usually do most of our elk hunts September, sometimes early October, but we really like September. Historically, that's when it's peak rut in our area, so we can do a lot of calling, a lot of bugling, and and the elk are a lot more on the move at that time as well.
So we're gonna basically bring some mid-weight gear, maybe throw some heavy gear in there just for those chilly mornings or what have you?
Yeah, so I mean, typically what I would say, September is a funny month in our area. I mean, I've seen it dump 1.5 feet of snow September 10th, and then it's melted 2 days later. Generally, on average, and don't quote me because it'll go from Mother Nature is very temperamental, as you would know, and um, yeah, typically, you know, frosty, cooler mornings and evenings, but middle of the day it can even be t-shirt weather. But you got to be prepared to have, some rain gear, some heavier clothes just in case, some gloves, a beanie. It can come fairly sudden, where all of a sudden you got 2 days of snow, which is good for the hunting. It kicks those elk off even more, but um, yeah, you definitely got to be prepared for it, and it'll make your hunt a lot more enjoyable, obviously, if you've got the right clothes for whatever conditions it throws at you. So
Now, is there specific seasons, say a rifle season, an archery season, or are they just combined weapons?
yeah, so I mean, the first 10 days of September, it's just primary archery elk, and you can basically take any bull. So anything with antlers, it can be a spike, it can be a 2 point, 3 point, on one side. Soon as September 10th comes around, then it switches to has to have 6 points on one side to be legal to harvest, and that's when rifle season starts. You can still hunt archery if you want, but basically the regulations change. It's got to be 6 points on one side to be legal to harvest, but you can still use either weapon, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Uh, do they include like your black powder weapons in that, or do they have like a primitive season?
Yeah, they do. So interestingly enough, you can we have taken black powder hunters in the past. It's funny, like, and I find it really interesting, and I'm not quite sure why, but I find it's a lot more popular in the States than up here. And maybe it's just because of the Canadian laws of firearms and stuff. I won't go into the politics of it. Otherwise, we'll be here all day. But yeah, but yes, so it is basically once September 10th comes around, it's kind of a general weapons kind of season, like you were kind of saying before. So yeah.
Yeah. See, I'm a big flintlock muzzleloader hunter. I love the bow hunt and I love the muzzleloader hunt. So I was talking to the guys at work today while I was going through, and I seen you did the mountain lion thing. I was like, it's one of my goals in my life is to shoot a mountain lion with my flintlock. I said,
That'd be pretty neat.
I said, I'm gonna have to talk to Tom and see if we can't make this happen.
Well, I'll be there for you, buddy. You name the time and place.
So now we got all that. How can we drive to your place, or do we have to fly into Canada? How?
Yeah, so there's a couple different options, and I mean, for my camp, you can drive right to our main lodge. You can drive into the backcountry and come right to our main camp. With that being said, we pick people up from our local airport. We got a lot of guys that they want to do a bit of sightseeing along the way on their way to us. So we're surrounded by several parks. We've got Kootenay National Park, Glacier, Yoho, and then we've got a few provincial parks around as well. And if you're flying into, say, Calgary or, say, Montana, the drive from both those spots to our location is very scenic. You see a lot of wildlife. It's a beautiful drive. But going back to your original question, yes, some people drive to us, and flying in is also an option to our local airports.
And then I seen that you have to have special paperwork if you're bringing a firearm.
Yeah, yep, 100%. So, and the key thing with that, so it's pretty easy to find. So if you Googled the U.S. Canadian Border Agency website and you put in bringing a firearm into Canada, they do it a lot at the border. So if you're driving in, or flying for that matter, the form they need is called Form 5589. The key thing with that is fill it out beforehand, but don't sign it until you're in the presence of a border agent. That's key. Don't sign it beforehand, but it's best to have it filled out, as best you can. And then once you're again in the presence of a border agent, you'll sign it with them kind of overlooking it. But that's basically the main paperwork. You'll have a copy of your booking contract, that we'll provide obviously as well, because they're going to ask basically at the border, okay, what's your business in Canada? Why are you bringing a firearm? And you can go, well, I'm heading up north, hunting with Tom, and here's my form 5589, planning on being in the country X amount of days, and Bob's your uncle. And typically if you're prepared for it, it's pretty rare you have any issues, I've found. So
yeah. We did a bear hunt back when September 11th happened. We actually came to Canada on September 15th, 4 days later. Went to Thunder Bay, Ontario, hunted with a guy named George. I can't remember his outfitter's name for some reason. But we were there bear hunting. 4 of us brought bows. 1 guy brought a rifle. And the other 2 guys, they drove themselves. They both brought rifles. The 1 guy that was with us had a DUI here and never had it expunged off of his record. So it turned into a great big hassle. Sat there for 5.5 hours. They weren't going to let him come with us the rest of the way. And, we all pitched in a bunch of money to buy him like a week-long pass, I guess, in Canada is what we paid for, And then when we got back, he had to show him that paperwork. If anything happened while we were there, he had to show him that paperwork. Got back, and they gave us like half the money back for that paperwork when we got back to the border. But we all killed bears. 3 of us killed wolves while we were there.
Oh, unreal.
And I shot a wolf with a bow, which was by a complete accident. I was coming out. I hunted in the morning because this bear had been tripping the cameras in the morning, so I went in there to hunt him in the morning. He never showed up, but a wolf came through. And I was in a tree stand. I arrowed him, called the guide. We went and looked for him, went back in. We were gone for an hour, and that bear had come back in while we were gone. So I ended up killing him on the very last day of the hunt. A real nice black bear. He was at 300 pounds, and he had a nice big chevron on the middle of his chest. No black on his muzzle or no brown on his muzzle. He was all black. Kind of basically the bear that I wanted. Minus I didn't want a big white patch, but it came with it. I wanted a complete black bear, and I just didn't get that lucky. But it was fun. It was an interesting hunt. I seen a lot of animals. Moose, pine marten, fishers. I mean, a ton of animals. Wolves every night, and I'm here in PA. We're not used to that. The first you hear a coyote, it's a little different than hearing a wolf for the first time when you're sitting up there in the Canadian bush and, a whole pack of wolves is 50 yards away from you and they start lighting up. Boy, it makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. And my guy, George, said to me, he said, when you're going out of the woods, he said, bang your tree stand against every tree. He said, make as much noise as you possibly can. He says, that way those wolves ain't going to bother you. He said, 1, 2 wolves, they'll run away. He said, but if you run into 10 or 15, he said, you're screwed. He said, I'll pick your bones up in the morning. So, but it was fun. We had a good time and, haven't been back, but I wanted to get more outfitters on the podcast to explain the whole process to people, how, and why you guys do what you do. And for people to understand, there's a lot more to going into booking a hunt than just calling you up and saying, hey, I'm coming September 10th. Here's my money. Let's hunt, And that's why I want you, basically to explain to the people, like we have been, break it down. We're to the point where I'm showing up at your lodge.
Okay. Well, So yeah, so paperwork, everything aside, you're showing up in camp. So basically, and I'll just add this in. So basically, how we do our hunts is we'll say, okay, it's a week long hunt, and typically that's what it is. But that's 7 full days of hunting. So you arrive the day before um, the hunt actually starts. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a 9 day trip, basically, with arrival and departure days on the ends of the actual hunt. So yeah, so the day before your hunt, you'd show up to camp. We get you settled in, take you to. We've got a little rifle range, or if you're bringing archery, we'll pull out the bow targets and just check your guns, check your bow, and just make sure everything's shooting fine. That's what I find. No matter how confident people are that everything's fine with their weapon, basically. Just take the time and shoot it.
Yep.
I had a couple of years ago, I had one guy, he was shooting a crossbow for a moose hunt, and it was a fairly new, he had bought it that year, and the brand's slipping my mind right now, but he basically said, yeah, it's all dialed in. I've been practicing daily, and they had driven up, so he wasn't worried about it getting dropped at the airport or, this or that. I said, we, should shoot it anyways. You never know. His second shot, the whole thing just exploded.
Wow.
So, I mean, it was all good. We managed to find him another bow to use while he was there, but the reality is it's best to test it, because if his first shot was at a moose with that, it could have led, unfortunately, to a miss, or even worse, that moose getting wounded and not recovered, right? So, and nobody's happy in that situation. So
Right.
yeah, I've got going back, get you settled into camp. We've got a full-time camp cook there, so have a good dinner, figure out plans for the next day. And a lot of the time, the nice thing how we like to operate is we try and have 4 to 6 hunters typically a week, but everybody, if we can, try and get everybody hunting different species. So I don't like to have, if I can, like all moose hunters or all goat hunters, within reason. I mean, obviously, if it's a father-son or a couple buddies that were going to hunt specifically one species, then yeah, of course we'll do that. But the advantage to hunting all different species, for instance, you might be hunting with a guide for elk, and I might be taking a guy out for mountain goat. On my journey, I might be trying to glass up some goats, and lo and behold, we run into a nice group of elk. We're not hunting elk, but we know you are. So that night when we meet up at camp again, we might have a good solid tip for you, and vice versa. You guys might be hunting elk, and you guys might glass up a really nice billy, and hey, you guys should go check that out tomorrow, right? So the advantage is we're hunting separately but together,
Right.
in a certain way, right? So it's kind of a pack mentality with the guides. We're all trying to constantly help each other out, and it just brings, I find, that camp camaraderie together a lot too. And they're, from a client perspective, I believe that, a guy might have, not know much about mountain goat hunting, but they love elk hunting or whatever species. But that way they start kind of learning more about something that potentially they might have not had an interest in, or just not known much about. It just broadens the experience a bit, right? So if they can see other species, other animals, and you know what, we've had it too where, guys tagged out, hey, I wouldn't mind helping that guy, or it's my buddy who's hunting, say, a mountain goat. Can I tag along for a day? And you know what, your experience just got diversified that much more by doing it that way, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
So you said billy goats, so I'm taking it that your territory has some pretty decent sized mountains in it then.
Oh yeah. So I mean, Typically, so our main camp, it's at about 5,500 to 6,000 feet, but the mountains themselves, quite a few of them go well over 10,000. Um, Typically, where we're hunting the goats, generally 7,500 to that 10,000 foot range, depending the time of year and what elevation you're catching them on, obviously. But yeah, there's some pretty good mountains. On our, we kind of call it our low country, but basically our low country, which is where we do a lot of our cat hunts in the winter, specifically because it's more winter range for the ungulates and the cats and the predators. Follow those ungulates down at the winter time, just chasing their food basically. But that our winter range is basically the Rocky Mountain Trench.
Okay.
So we've got the Rockies on one side and the Purcells on the other. And so it goes from, river bottoms, there's agricultural land down there. We've got the Columbia River and wetlands on one side. It turns to rolling timbered hills, and then all of a sudden it just goes straight up in the mountains. So I kind of like joking about it, but at the end of the day, we got kind of any kind of terrain that you could want.
Well, I seen that you offered whitetail hunts, mule deer hunts. So I'm thinking, there's got to be some kind of lowlands because the whitetails ain't going to be up that high, right?
Well, it would surprise you actually. Yeah, I would say a lot of whitetails are in the low country and are residents of that low country, but there's some surprisingly good bucks way in the back country. And I'm not saying that they're 3/4 the way up the mountain elevation wise. They're more in the valley floors, but they are pretty far back there. They'll be 40, 50 miles back into the mountains. And yeah, I mean, there's some pretty decent bucks there. They're mountain bucks. So they're, I can't say, I can't compare them in size, in all honesty, to say Saskatchewan, Alberta style bucks. But I've seen some pretty good ones. Like 150 to even the 170s. Like you can get the odd really good buck there.
And the body weight on them, I mean, they got to be up there close to 300 pounds.
I would say, yeah. I mean, 200 easily. Depends on the deer, obviously. The older it gets, the bigger it's going to be. But yeah, I would say that 200, 250 on the hoof with the odd one, pushing that 300. You go to the prairies more, and that's where you really find those 300-pound deers, just because the food quality, the agricultural lands, it just allows them to bulk up that much more.
Now, your mule deer, they live in the same territory, or are they up higher, lower?
Yeah, generally they're higher elevations, so they're alpine bucks. They will come down to the low country later in the season, like during the rut, or when we get a good dump of snow. But those bucks, they're pretty tenacious. A lot of the times they won't come off the mountains till they're pushing snow with their bellies. And by and large, they'll migrate in kind of that May, June kind of time of year from the winter range. And they'll go way up high above timberline for most of the year. And my favorite time to hunt those ones, probably, for me personally, a lot of guys like the rut, but I truly really like that alpine September hunt for the bucks. They're still in their bachelor groups. If you find one, chances are there's at least 2 or 3 or a dozen more bucks in that one basin. So yeah, I mean, and to me, I think it's gotten that style of hunt's gotten a lot more popular the last 10 years. I mean, you see it online, you see the videos of guys hunting those mountain bucks, and just the scenery, the places they take you. I just love it. I can't say enough good things about it.
Okay, so say I don't know, day 4 of the hunt, we harvest our elk. Mm-hmm. Now we got to get this thing out of there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, depending where we are, like, again, we've got a pretty diverse kind of range of country. So and like I mentioned earlier, like we've got some spots that, it's more prudent probably for horses or, to hike in. Like, again, we try and tailor each hunt to the client. We got some guys that want to treat it like a sheep hunt. Like, take me in the middle of nowhere for multiple days. We're going to spike tent it out. And we're happy to do that. We got some guys that want to go, well, I would prefer to, come back to the main camp, have a nice dinner. We can even drive to certain spots and then do, an hour hike into some spots. We have other options too, like the wetlands too. There's a lot of islands along the rivers there. You can kind of cruise along the edge of the river on foot, doing some calling. So I mean, we've got kind of every other level, but basically going back to your question, got an elk down. Depending where it is, might use a horse to pack it out, might just pack it, quarter it up or debone it, depending how far away, from a road or a truck or camp we are. But yeah, we'll get every bit of meat out of there, whether we got to debone it, quarter it, or haul it out horseback.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. And then I guess once we get it back to the camp, you have coolers and
so we have
and stuff.
Yeah, and we've got a couple local butchers in our area too. So again, like we'll tailor it. Some guys want to kind of butcher it themselves in camp. More than happy to do that. Some guys go, well, let's get back out hunting. Let's just take it to a butcher, get them to cut, wrap, freeze it real quick for the journey home. And then there's other cases where we might just, like for goats, it's pretty common that we'll debone it, but we'll just freeze it in big solid chunks, and then they take it home that way, and they'll butcher it on their own time or their own butcher. So there's a lot of options. That's the nice thing, and what we strive for is to adapt to whatever works for the client as well.
So what? I never heard of anybody eating a mountain goat. I've eaten those mouflon rams and stuff that my buddies have shot in these high fences, and they are about like they smell like you're eating a wet sock. So, I mean,
well, I'll answer your question with a little side story. So my grandpa, goat hunting was huge in my family, always was. And my grandpa kind of, when he immigrated over here from the Czech Republic, way back in the day, he was a coal miner. And back then, I think they were doing, like, don't quote me on the details, but basically family could sponsor other family at that time to come over. And that's what he did. But like I said, the man absolutely loved goat hunting, just nuts about it. I remember, and his favorite way to cook it, and he was very fond of saying this, and I try and pass this story on because I think it's worth sharing. So his favorite recipe for goat meat: get a pot of water, get it boiling, take a rock, about the size of your fist, put it in the boiling water. You take about a pound of goat meat, doesn't matter what part of the goat, just throw it in there, let it boil for 12 hours, and you throw the meat out and you eat the rock. I'm kidding. You don't do that. That's not ethical. But it's a funny little story. Goats are extremely lean, extremely tough. I find, but the flavor, I really like the flavor. Like fresh goat tenderloin, hard to beat, honestly, especially when you just packed it off the mountain. But it's one of those meats that I personally, like, I really like mixing it with some pork and getting it made into smokies or sausage.
Okay.
Slow cooking is a great way, but if you expect to just cut a steak off and throw in a frying pan or barbecue, no, you're not going to enjoy it. It's going to be like eating a boot, really. But there is ways to cook it, and anybody that is out there hunting goats that's kind of new to the meat, I highly recommend do some research on recipes and what other people have done, because rest assured there is a way to make it a bit more tender, a bit more flavorful. Don't get discouraged. But but I find that's with a lot of other wild meat, right? Like if you, for instance, run into somebody that says, "Oh, I hate wild meat," chances are they just didn't cook it right,
Yep.
and they tried it once or twice, and it's not necessarily their fault, but they weren't educated to the point where it's like, it's surprising how a lot of people, even with venison, they don't understand you can't just put a steak on the barbecue. That it's a lot leaner naturally.
Yep.
And that's what makes it a lot healthier in a lot of ways too. But yeah, got to do your research.
We when we shot those bears in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
the guide's wife said to us, she's like, "I'm going to make bear backstraps for dinner." And I said to her, I said, "Well, I said, to be honest with you, I said, all I've ever heard about was how stringy and how tough bear meat is." She's like, "Well, we're going to make backstraps for dinner." Well, she made these backstraps out of my bear. And I'll tell you what, that's all I've wanted to do since I shot my bear in Canada, was shoot one here in PA so I can have backstraps. I brought the hams home, the hindquarters. I brought them home whole, deboned. I dropped them off at the local butcher shop out here, and I had him make one into capicola, and the other one he just brined like you would a ham and smoked it. And I'll tell you what, it was some of the best meat I've ever eaten. So like you said, people that say, I've had bear at Wild Game Cooks, and it is horrible. But this stuff was just unbelievable. It's all in the way you prep it. Take care of it.
Yep.
I'm sure
100%.
grizzly bear probably tastes excellent too.
Yeah. I've tried that in the past. Yeah.
I've heard about mountain lions, and I've heard about eating bobcats. So,
and the mountain lion too, like it's very similar to pork. And back in the day, if I recall my history right, I think like I'm talking, the mountain men from the 1800s, right? Their favorite meats, I think, was mountain lion. It was like buffalo hump, and there's another one. It's slipping my brain right now, but it was one of their top.
Beaver tail was a big deal back then
right,
too.
That's what I was thinking about.
Yep. They said Lewis and Clark ate beaver tail for like 14 days straight because that was the only thing they had. So that's pretty crazy. Oh. And I've actually had beaver tail, and I'll tell you what, it's like eating cracklings or pork rinds.
It must be a lot of fat in it, I would imagine.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it's real good.
Well, can't say I've had the chance to try that yet, but if I ever have the chance, I will.
So, the animals that you guide for, we've done everything. We got our elk. He's in the cooler. Can you say you get this animal early? Can you hunt something else? Or are you done completely?
No. Honestly, at the end of the day, so what we do is most of our fall hunts at the moment. So we usually include, say you booked an elk hunt, it usually comes with your choice of either a mule deer, black bear, whitetail, or a wolf tag too. And the idea is your priority animal obviously is the elk, but you get your pick out of that other tag just as an added kind of opportunity, because at the end of the day, nothing worse than you're hunting one species and then you have an absolute toad of another walks right by you and you don't have the tag in your pocket, right? So, and it's just to add, we'd like to do that for just a little bit of added opportunity. And it just makes the hunt that much more exciting, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you get your elk down, we'll go hunt that other species. Or if you just want to, for that matter, if you just want to hang out and camp or do some sightseeing, we're all over that too. So again, we try and tailor it to what the client wants.
So when you hunt your bears, is there a specific time? Is that spring, fall?
Yeah, so you can hunt them in the fall. But I find, like, if you're coming to hunt bears specifically, springtime's way better than the fall. They're a lot more densed up on the food sources as the snow recedes. So, I mean, in our area in the spring, typically you'll see anywhere from 2 to 4 bears a day to as many as 20. And this is spot and stalk. We're not allowed to bait bears in BC. So, I mean, you're just covering a lot of ground, or if you're on a slide where a couple are hanging out, well, you're just sitting and waiting basically on the edge of a slide, similar to kind of even a tree stand hunt, but there's no bait involved. It's just you're waiting them out.
Okay, so it's at grizzly bear and black bears. You hunt them both the same way.
Yeah, so grizzly bear at the moment, it's they've shut that hunt down completely in BC a few years back. Honestly, in my opinion, it was 110% politically motivated, because I've never seen more grizzly bears than I have the last couple of years. And even the couple of years leading up to that hunt being closed, there was a lot of grizzly bears. And the unfortunate part with that is it's becoming more and more clear that there's becoming a bit of an imbalance with the amount of grizzly bears. Don't want to go too political with this, but yeah, I was
going to say, I listened to a thing with Jim Shockey, and he was talking about the grizzly bear population and how bad it is and how out of control it is, like in his Yukon territory and stuff like that. So I kind of figured, it's got to be the same way where you're at, and I don't understand why some of Canada, like over towards Thunder Bay, that you're only allowed to springtime hunt bears and no fall hunting. I mean, to me, do they have biologists that work there, or are they just?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I mean. Yeah.
So I mean, Ontario, I couldn't tell you their reasoning. Like that's, I'm out of the loop on that one. But like BC, we'll have a regional manager that has several biologists kind of working with them, and then a lot of the time, basically, all the regulations and stuff are figured out from them through Victoria. But again, not to go too politically, but in my opinion, there's some issues there as well, right? So just with, again, not getting into it too much, but I find British Columbia is a huge, massive area. And I find the control of how these regulations are rolled out and why they're rolled out. It's based in Victoria, for example, which is on the coast. The people that are basically laying out the rules may have never even stepped foot in our region.
Right.
And I find that's not very scientific. That's just not the way to do it.
Right.
And I think there is slowly a push to go to more regional management from the sounds of it. And I'm hoping that's where it goes. But I find, and I think honestly with government these days, and probably in the States too, everything's getting too generalized. Like one person will oversee a huge amount of stuff.
Yeah.
And the problem is a lot of little details get swept into the cracks that way.
Yep.
When, if you got the guy who's right there living it, breathing it, that guy's going to know a lot more or have a better idea, in my opinion, of what's the best route to take and how to manage than someone who hasn't even been there, right? So
yeah.
I don't know. Personal opinion. Might get me some flack at home, but whatever.
Well, hey, you know what? That's one thing, with this podcast is I don't try to hide anything. I had the politicians on last night. Miss Mandy Steele, she helped get our Sunday hunting ban removed here in Pennsylvania. We are now allowed to hunt Sundays. I'm 55 years old. I've been hunting since I was 12. I thought I'd be dead and gone before this day came. It was a 150-year ban, and she got her and some other politicians got it removed.
Yeah, so like, if you don't mind me asking, Rob, if we got time for it, because I heard that actually the other day. I read that somewhere online that had just happened.
Yeah.
What was the original thought process to have hunting on Sundays?
William Penn,
Okay,
the guy who founded Pennsylvania
okay,
back in the 1700s,
oh, okay,
he was very, very religious,
oh, okay, I
and
gotcha. Yeah,
the religion part of it,
hmm,
you could hunt every day except Sunday because Sunday was a religious day.
okay, yeah,
And we've never, you know, I make my sportsmen around here mad all the time because I say Pennsylvania is hooked on traditions. We used to have a Monday opener for the first day of gun season, which used to be the first day of buck season. Now it opens on Saturday. Well, everybody pisses and moans about it open on Saturday. You know what? Kids can go now. Kids can actually get 3 days of deer season without
yeah,
missing a day of school.
yeah,
When I was in school, we only got to hunt that Monday because that was the only day off of school we had. And then I didn't get to hunt again until Saturday. Never got to hunt any Sundays, you know. Now the kids you're getting Saturday, Sunday, Monday, the first 3 days of deer season. And then you go back to school Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and you're back at it again Saturday and Sunday. I mean, to me, it was a no-brainer for this to happen. But,
yeah,
it took politicians who really cared and listened to the sportsmen to do this, to make it happen. And, like, I had her on last night, her and Dan Sneath from the Hunter Nation, because they had a lot of push in it. The Pennsylvania Federation of Sportsmen, they had a lot of push in it. The Farm Bureau finally came around and said, look, we need to help the farmers. The farmers are losing a ton of crops because the whitetails are getting out of hand. And I'll be the first to tell you, I have a 200 and some acre lease, and we put one drive on last year in gun season, and I counted 47 deer. I haven't counted 47 deer since I was 12 years old on one push. And
wow,
I was hunting flintlock season late last year because I didn't kill a buck. I shot my buck with a flintlock the second to the last day. He was in the field. It was January. He was coming to a uncut soybean field. Him, 4 other bucks, and I think there was 32 does out in that field that evening that I shot him.
wow,
And
that's nice to see, eh?
yeah,
In,
and I keep
in one way.
telling my guys that are on the lease with us, buy as many doe tags as possible. Shoot as many does as we can. Our rut is so screwed up because the bucks don't have to go nowhere. Them bucks don't have to get up and move around. You know what I mean? They can stay in them thickets. They don't have to come out looking for does.
Yeah,
We're getting deer to the 130, 140, 150 inches, but that's no good if they're not getting up in the daytime and coming out. You know what I mean? You're wasting your time hunting them. You got to
so
wait
is
till
your
them.
buck to doe ratio pretty? It's not very even.
It's crazy. It's way out of whack. I mean, I can show you trail camera pictures from this year. I have not put. I've been doing my mineral feedings like I always do. I believe in minerals. I don't believe in pounding them with a bunch of corn because the corn don't do them no good. Let them get the soybeans and everything else that the farmer plants there. But I can show you pictures at mineral sites where I got, right now in the summertime, 25, 30 does. That's just, and the bucks won't come around when there's all them does around it. They just stay away from it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So,
yeah, they just stay at home and
yeah.
hang out on the couch and
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. We actually got to put like mineral sites off in the thickets so that the bucks can get a little bit of the minerals, to keep them,
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, I mean, It kind of our fault because a lot of the guys that are on the deer lease, you know, they got that old timer mentality. The more does you got, the better off you are. Well, no, that's not the way this works anymore. You know, we got to have a proper ratio to make things work. So
there's it's got to be a balance to everything.
Yeah. You know, and I'm sure you guys see it up there with your whitetails and your mule deer. You know, the years that you got a bunch of females, you don't see that much rut activity. You know, because they don't have to go far.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it can work in your favor or it can work otherwise, right? So, yeah, and I mean, even just it's interesting too. Like our area, like it's a blessing, but it also makes it more complicated. Like our region, we've got bighorn sheep, mountain goat, moose, elk, mule deer, whitetail, wolf, cougar, lynx, bobcat. We've got all like such species diversity. It's interesting. You'll see one species population doing really well, and then another one will kind of decrease in response. Like, you know, everything up here, like, you know, with winter range, I find is a really key component, you know, for numbers. If the grass isn't there or the forage isn't there for, you know, the whole population, obviously, then it's not going to do so well, or a different species is going to feed more heavily as their population numbers have gone up, and it's going to negatively affect another species. So, and same with predators, that's a whole nother side of it, right? You get too many wolves, too many bears, well, your fawn and calf crop that year is probably not going to be that great, you know, in terms of surviving that first year, which is key for pretty much all ungulates. Once they get through that first year, their survival rates go way up. But that first year, man, it can be a struggle. Yeah.
So you said you do cattle in your off time. Do you have a problem with the wolves and the bears getting the cattle? I mean, I don't want to wish no bad luck on you, but that's
no. I mean, I've lost. I lost one calf to a big black bear one spring, but other than that, I haven't had too many issues with the bears. They're there, and with that being said, like I try and like in the springtime when the cows are calving, I keep them closer to the barn, the maternity pens, and the corrals. So it's not as likely for them to meet up with bears there, or even the wolves where I'm located, anyways. But coyotes can be really bad. There's been many a night when, you know, I'm walking in amongst the cows with the spotlight to just check on everybody. You know, you check every probably about 4 hours just to make sure everybody's doing good. If they're calving, everything's going well. But many a time at night, you know, you got your spotlight and, oh, those eyes look different. And there's a couple coyotes, they're just biding their time, waiting for one to start calving out, and they'll do the same with deer and elk. They'll, unfortunately, and nature's pretty cruel sometimes, but they'll eat a fawn or a calf as it's being born.
Right.
Like, they're pretty opportunistic.
Yeah.
It's not nice to witness, but it's happening, and it happens a lot more often than people think.
Yeah, I got some trail camera pictures. If I can find them, I'll send them to you, of one of our coyotes coming past my trail camera with a just freshly born fawn in his mouth, you know. And was it 2 or 3 days later, I went over there with the call, and pretty sure I shot him, you know, pretty sure he was the one that was in the picture carrying the fawn. It was a big male, you know. A couple weeks ago, I hunted, you know, in that 90-degree spell that we had. I went over there a couple nights in a row, and believe it or not, I called in some coyotes when it was 85 degrees at night. And, you know, most of the coyotes I'm getting this time of year are the females because they're trying to feed the young. But, yeah, you know, I try to do my predator control 365 days a year. I love hunting them things, you know. So, But yeah, that so do you have a specific animal that you personally like to hunt?
I mean, at the end of the day, I like it all, but if I had to bring it down to, I don't know if I could do one favorite, Rob, but I would say mountain goat and mule deer, like mountain mule deer. Those are kind of my favorites on a personal level. The goats, I think, just family, a bit of family tradition there, and it just runs in the blood there. And but for both the goats and the mule deer, I think it's just the country they take me in. That's why I enjoy about it so much. It's pretty special when you're on top of a mountain, the sun's just coming up, and there's a big buck in the distance or a nice mountain goat, and you're feel like you're touching the sea, the floor of heaven, basically, right? So,
Yep. So
yeah.
how big do the mountain goat get, like body wise, and what they're not? I guess they're not antlers; they're horns, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I would say on average, in our area, like a good billy will be that 275, 300 pounds. We took one a couple of years ago, and it was so big in terms of body size that it was, I think it was around 400. I mean, there was no way to really actually measure it where we were when we got it, but I have from cattle ranching and just kind of weighing out packs and stuff. Like I have a pretty decent. I like to think I have a pretty decent idea of what I'm looking at in terms of weight.
Right.
And yeah, but I would say around 300 for a good, a good billy. 300 pounds is kind of around that mark there. Horn wise, 8 to 10 inch is typically, 9-inch average, I would say, around there is kind of what we strive for. You get a 10-inch billy, you're doing really good. That's a big goat.
Pretty old goat too, then.
Not necessarily. So,
No?
like with goats, they'll grow the majority of their horn length in the first 2 years of their life. So, if you're ever looking up close at, you got a minute? Can I grab a set real quick?
Sure.
Probably easier just to show you. Just let me grab a set real quick. I'll be right back.
Yep.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah, figured it'd just be easier to show you. So, this was a billy I took a couple years ago. But if you look at it close, you can kind of see. You can see these rings, these annuli rings, right?
Yep.
So, it's same with sheep and whatnot, but every one of those rings is a year. So if you kind of go to the beginning, you can kind of see there's kind of a little bulge right here. So that's him just starting his growth, right? And then you get down to about here, and that's kind of year and a half to 2 years. And then and you can tell, like, overall, this is a kind of a funny goat because he's actually like 11 years old, this billy, but he never had the genetics for super good length.
Okay.
So he got a lot of mass on him. But point being, half or more typically of that first 2 years is just the first 2 years of his growth, right? So, and you can tell these rings, like, so that's the next year to about there, and then it really cuts down the amount of growth after that. So, yeah. So, and I mean, I think that's like he's an 11-year-old goat, but I think it's only 8.5-inch goat. So it really depends on the genetics. But that was it was just a good one to take out. He was on the old end there, and genetically just didn't have a ton of length, but he definitely had the mass. So.
Now, do you guys get to hunt sheep too?
So in our area, we don't have the sheep in our guide territory.
Okay.
They're right across the river from us, but we don't do hunts for them specifically. I have guided a little bit north and done a lot of sheep hunting for myself over the years. But yeah, I can't say we offer that hunt at the moment, anyways.
So
Yeah,
a goat hunt isn't a once in a lifetime deal. You can get a tag.
as a resident, yeah.
Okay.
So it's limited entry in our area. So you put in a draw, and I mean, every management unit's a little different based on the population, how they're doing, et cetera, et cetera. And this changes, year to year sometimes, based on what the biologists think. But generally, as a resident, at the moment, if I play my cards right and I'm putting into certain places that have better odds, um, you can draw a goat every, I would say, 3 years, you know. But with that being said, like personally, and I love goat hunting, but um, to me, I've taken a couple goats at this point in my life. I'd rather see somebody else take one that hasn't taken one before, and I feel this kind of the same for sheep to a degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the sheep, I guess the sheep would be like a once in a lifetime draw. At least that's what it is down here in the States,
Well, not necessarily. So
No?
for the bighorns, it's funny. Actually, I had a friend. He drew a sheep tag last year, bighorn sheep tag. He got a round, and he drew it again this year.
Wow.
Meanwhile, I put in for, I don't know. It used to be open season here for full curl rams, but I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago now. They turned it to limited entry, which probably, honestly, some people think it's a bad idea. I think it was a good idea, but yeah, I've been putting in for 6, 7 years. I haven't drawn. So, but for stone sheep further north, like northern BC at the moment, yeah, I can just buy a tag and go as like a general open season, but they've still got to be full curl or 8 years or older. So
Okay.
yeah, so there is limitations. You can't just go in and just kill any sheep. But it's probably similar in the States, probably too. Like you'll draw it, and then it's got to be either male, female, or certain size limit.
Right. Yeah, I've been putting in for our PA elk drawing for, this would have been year 21 that I've been putting in, and I still haven't drew an elk tag yet. So hopefully it'll happen sooner or later. If not, I'll be seeing you and we'll be chasing a bull up there in BC.
Well, fingers crossed, because you guys got some dandies there, as
Oh.
far as I understand.
There's a couple Facebook pages that I followed where the guys take a lot of photographs up there in Benezet where the elk are, and some of them things are pushing, 450 inches of antler. It's like, wow, it's unreal,
Yeah. No, it's sure a majestic animal.
I mean,
And,
even the one you got on your website at the bottom, he looks like one of our PA elk. So, I mean, you guys got some, and that would be the Rocky Mountain elk, right? It's not the Roosevelt or anything.
Yeah, like the Roosevelts, we have them in BC, but they're more on the coast.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got the inland grizzly bear then?
Like we call them interior grizzly bears.
So he would be, body wise, they're bigger, or is it the coastal that are bigger?
It kind of depends where you go. So like, some of those more coastal bears where they get on the salmon runs and stuff like that, they'll be bigger body size, and I think it's straight up probably not just genetics, but obviously their diet is so much richer with the fish and vegetation that's there. But I mean, with that being said, there's some pretty big ones walking around out here. Sometimes uncomfortably big.
I know when I was doing taxidermy for a guy I used to work for, we did a bear that came from Alaska. And from the tip of his nose to the butt of his tail, right where his tail came out of his butt, he was 13 and a half feet.
Wow.
And
that's a good one. Holy.
Yeah. the guy said to me, he's like, the bear had no teeth. Like, his teeth were just worn down. He shot the bear, and then he shot a moose. And which I thought was funny because it was the first time I ever got to actually mount a moose. I'm doing the inside of the nose, and like on a whitetail, I use a tool to do the nose. I was sticking my whole hand in the moose's nose to smooth the skin out, and I'm like, this is crazy. You go from doing something that's this small to something that's got a nostril this big. And then you got that grizzly bear with a head on it that just, it was unbelievable, And, I'm amazed with this, the stuff that you guys have up north compared to what we have down here. Like, your black bears have got to dwarf our black bears. I mean, we've killed there's been some pretty nice bears killed in PA, but most of those are poached,
Oh, okay, yeah. Because I've heard, isn't there you guys get the odd, like, absolute massive black bear, though, in Pennsylvania, do you not? Like,
yeah.
I think I've seen pictures, and they're like 500 plus pounds sometimes.
There was one killed probably 10 years ago that was pushing 750 pounds.
Wow.
But he lived about a mile from a pie shop, and everybody fed him, and this dude poached him at night. He shot this bear at night, and, I mean, now I've got buddies of mine that have been lucky enough to kill a PA bear, pushing 450, 500 pounds, some 600 pounds. Those are big bears. I thought that 300 pounder I killed up in Thunder Bay was a monster, but, you get to see these other ones.
I guess if it's, it would be pretty embarrassing to miss a 700-pound bear, eh?
Yeah. So, you want to let everybody know how they can get a hold of you? I probably held you up long enough. It's like we've been on here for a while.
Good. I'm easy. Yeah, I mean, I highly recommend checking out our website. It's www.silentmountain.ca, or you can just Google Silent Mountain Outfitters. All my contact info is on there, email, phone. If what we have is something you're interested in and you want some information or just to chat about some hunting, please feel free to give me a call, give me an email, and we'll make it happen.
No, you know what? I'm not going to let you go yet because I want to know about the cats.
Yep, fair enough.
We got to talk about cats.
Sure.
So we do the same deal to get a cat hunt, right? We got to go through all the paperwork, the whole 9 yards. You do all that stuff. Now you offer a cat, a mountain lion. What was it? Bobcat and
lynx. Yeah. So, I mean, some people want to do their cat trick, they'll call it. So they want to go for all three. Usually most guys, they want to just do mountain lion or lynx. And those are kind of the higher priority, I'll call them for us. Like most clients we have, they want to go for those ones, and you can combine them. The seasons are overlapped. Yeah, I mean, at the moment, and with our mountain lion in particular, we've tried very hard to keep to only do a certain amount of hunts with them, because we're getting bigger cats that way. I've seen other areas where they've basically overhunted them and they're struggling to find 120 pound tom, right? And like us, we've been kind of averaging 150 to 160 pound cats, but we only want to do like 3 or 4 a year, versus the guys that are getting the smaller cats, they might be doing a dozen a year. And we're more focused on obviously the males, and you can tell that from their tracks. So with that being said though, like, things happen. Sometimes you get, you're tracking one with the hounds and tracks overlap, and you get to a tree and go, that's not what I started with. So you got to figure it all out, right? But it's a very interesting style of hunt, and I think, I think it's because of the use of the hounds that makes it truly unique. Just because it's, you can't call them gear, like, like your hounds, like they're more like a hunting partner, but with extra abilities, right?
Right.
So it just brings a whole different dynamic. And the nearest I can kind of trying to describe what the feeling would be like. So, you know, and they're set up with GPS collars so the dogs aren't getting lost, and you can keep track of what's going on. But basically, when you're approaching that tree, when you know that they've got that cat treed, there's always, I find, at least personally, there's this anticipation feeling that it's like catching a fish when you're ice fishing and you're just, you're not, you can tell it's got some weight to it and you're just,
Right.
your brain's going mad trying to figure out how big, what is it, and so it's that same kind of feeling of anticipation. And that's what I really like about it. And it's just different because you're totally in snow, or at least you hope you are, because you're tracking that way. You can kind of tell how far apart the tracks are, by the toes. Is it male or female? You can measure that back pad. Is it big enough to go after? And the cool part is too, you're also like hunting winter range, so you're often bumping deer and elk and moose and stuff like that as well. And it's just a unique setting, a unique hunt, unique methods. Like, yeah, that's what I like about it. It's different.
So do you, is it basically guns when you get them treed, or?
It can be archery too, yeah. So, I mean, generally, it's probably 50-50 between the archery and using a gun. I mean, the reality is your distance for shooting can be anywhere from 10 yards to, depending how big a tree they're in, how high up. Like, it's not long distance shooting.
Right.
So, I mean, archery is very doable with that kind of hunt generally, unless they're just covered in, by branches and they're 80 feet up in a tree and you just can't see them from below. But generally, yeah, you can usually get within 50, 60 feet of them.
Now, do you hunt the lynx and the bobcat the same way, or are they?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's very similar. You're out looking for tracks. You find the track you like. You let the dogs out, and they do their work. And I make it sound like it's just that simple. You just let them out, and ta-da, you have a cat. That's not quite how it works. I mean, we've had, not only with mountain lion but lynx too, where 10, 20 minutes later it's treed, and you walk in a couple hundred yards and there it is, and it's like, oh, that was easy. And then we've had some where you're chasing them all day and you still don't catch up to them. And the lynx and bobcat in particular, I have such a respect for, because they are such a smart little critter. They'll walk on logs, trees that are half down. They'll go up one tree, they'll jump into another tree just to get they seem to understand the game.
Yeah.
A lot better than a lot of people would think. And in the mountain country, it's in their favor, that chase. Like between the terrain and the timber, and if the snow gets too deep, well, those hounds are going to be wallowing in the snow, versus those cats can just walk right on top of it a lot of the time. So a lot of people, a lot of the anti-hunting community, they don't understand that. And the reality with like all hunting, there's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
Yeah.
Unless you're out there actually doing it, there's a lot that won't be understood. And you know what? There's still new things to learn every time you go.
Yep.
You never stop learning.
Now, when you hunt your wolves, since we're doing the predators, do you hunt them by calling, or do you hunt them by baiting?
So you can do, like, generally we do a mix of calling, but in all honesty, and this is what I typically explain to anybody wanting to hunt wolves in our area, generally it's just an add-on tag to have it in your pocket if you run across them. Similar to how you're describing your bear hunt. Yeah, you got the tag, you get a chance at one, well, you got the tag in your pocket.
Yeah.
Because they are very smart, very elusive. They are there. But chances are, if you bump into one, like, if you're hiking along or, you're hunting something else, you've probably got, if you're lucky in that situation, 5 seconds or less to make a shot. Unless, you're sitting in a spot, it doesn't know you're there and it walks out in front of you. That's totally different. But, if you're on the move, it's going to be fast and furious, if at all. So yeah. But it is definitely good to have that tag in your pocket. And that's why, like, for us personally, um, we don't really offer it like as a strict standalone hunt
Right.
for our area, just because it is that's just the way it is for our area. There is other outfitters though that throughout Canada they'll specifically do that kind of hunt. But at the best case, with those kind of hunts, you got to be very, very patient. And if you're specifically going for a wolf, a lot of guys, they'll do 2 or 3 trips and they might not even see one. Like, they're that elusive. Um, and that's honestly what makes them very kind of a critter of epic proportions. Not only are they elusive, but gosh, they're smart.
Yeah.
Super smart.
Yep. When we did a couple of the evening hunts up there for the wolves, we were nailing the beaver carcasses to the trees, and you would catch a glimpse of them coming in, but as soon as they winded you, that was it. It was over. They'd run off and they'd get down, in the bush, and they'd start howling and carrying on. Just, George was like, "Well, they know we're here. Let's go." He said, "Let them have those, and we'll come back and try it again tomorrow." But yeah, it was fun. Like I said, I got lucky. Mine come walking up the path and had no idea I was in a tree stand, and I got him. So.
Oh, that's awesome! It's amazing how, even with trail cameras, where I've just checked a camera, for example, and 10 minutes later, next time I check it, that wolf was right there, probably watching me, knew exactly I was there and knew exactly when I left.
Yep.
And I've seen that with with grizzlies too. A lot of the time, when they don't want to be seen, you're not going to see them. But I recall one time I went and checked the camera, and it's a little bit of water there, like just a puddle really. But they come in there and grab a drink and sometimes wallow in it if it's hot. And I had a camera there, and I got there, the water was all, churned up. Something had just been there. And I looked down in the mud, and boy, there was a grizz track front pad like that. I'm like, ooh, that's pretty big. And I had one of those cameras where you got the little screen on it so you can see. I just about had an accident, man. Like, I looked, and there was one of the biggest grizzly bears I had ever seen on camera or otherwise. Had been there like literally a couple of minutes before. So needless to say, I shut the camera. I got the heck out of there. But I'm sure that bear was, probably within 100 yards. But with the way the bush was there, it could have very well been under 50 yards and just watching me. Right?
We didn't talk too much about the moose, but I'm sure you guys got some pretty hefty moose up there.
Yeah, so I mean, in our area, because we're more in the southern portion, right? So we've got the Shiras moose actually in our area, but we're right on the edge of basically where the Shiras range and the Canadian moose range kind of starts to overlap a bit. Yeah, so I mean, in all honesty, like an average bull in our area is probably like a 40-inch, with decent paddles and stuff, and they get up to 50+ inch. You go, the further north you go, the bigger they get. Like, you go to that Alaska, Yukon, NWT area. I've done a little bit of hunting and playing around up there, guiding too for sheep and whatnot. And man, some of the moose up there are just unbelievable. I was lucky enough. I worked for had a good friend who was an outfitter in the Yukon there for a while, and he was always bugging me about bringing my dad up there for a hunt. And so remember I was calving one spring, and he called me up. Hey, how's it going? And when are you actually going to come up here hunting? Like, he started hassling me over it, right? And I said, wow, it's not that I don't want to, but I got to convince my old man, right? So my dad, he's one of the hardest working people I know, and he loves to hunt, but he's one of those guys that, to put it nicely, he works so hard, and he's so ingrained with that he'll put the hunting on the back burner sometimes, and even when there's no reason to. So the point being, I every year I'd bring this up to him, and goes, well, maybe next year when we're not as busy. Well, you got to make time to go do these things too, right? So I ended up just buying the airplane tickets and figuring out a deal with my buddy, and I just basically Father's Day hand him tickets, like, we're going hunting. Nothing you can do about it now, right? So, which was, we got a beautiful 60 or 62 inch bull moose, and
Wow.
really nice caribou that was right on the edge of Boone and Crockett, that hunt. Yeah, sorry, I kind of went on a tangent there.
No.
Yeah, talking about moose, it was an awesome trip, and those moose are something else. Like, just, any of the species, like, their body size is just massive, and just the way they're adapted to travel through swampy country. And I remember horseback riding in the Yukon there, and the alders and the willows are, sometimes 10 feet plus tall, and you're riding your horse, and it's literally just your shoulders and your head and neck above the alders while you're riding a horse. And I remember coming around a few corners, and all of a sudden a moose would stand up 20, 30 yards away because you bump into it. And meanwhile, that moose, he's got like 3 feet of body above the the willows, and it's just mind blowing. Like, they kind of are like modern day dinosaurs.
Yeah.
They're just, yeah.
Yeah.
Neat animal.
I went to Newfoundland.
Mm-hmm.
I hunted them on the Gander River.
Okay.
Never got close enough to get one, but I shot a bear while I was there. Never got to get the moose.
You see some though?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I spent 10 days there. 10 days I lived in chest waders.
Oh, okay.
Because everything you stepped on there, you sunk, and I was a lot heavier back then too. It was a miserable hunt.
That muskeg, like, I mean, I've hunted whitetail in even northern Alberta, and it's that similar muskeggy. I'm sure Newfoundland, it's probably 10 times worse. Just but it's not fun to get around in on any day.
Nah. No matter where you stepped, you sunk, and I mean, it was miserable. And the guide kept saying to me, he's like, "Well, it'd take us about half a day to get over there." I said, "It might take you a half a day to get there." I said, "It'll take me a day and a half to get over there." He's like, "Well," and then, like I said, I shot my bear. I don't think we were 200 yards from the lodge when I shot my bear.
Oh, wow.
We were actually going out to hunt moose that morning, and we stumbled across the bear on the trail at the same time, and the guide's like, "Yeah, it's a pretty nice bear if you want him." I was like, "Yep, I'll take him. At least I'll fill one tag."
Hand's worth two in the bush, right?
Yep. All right, buddy, I've kept you for an hour and a half, man, and I'm sure you got stuff to do tonight, and I appreciate you coming on here. One more time, let everybody know where they can find you at, and we'll run my sponsor list, and we'll get you out of here and back to business.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Rob. Really appreciate it. And it's been great getting to talk with you and getting to know you a little better. And tell that Steve keep his hair on straight, and maybe one of these days we'll figure something out where you guys can come up and we can do a little hunting together.
Yeah. I'd love to do that.
Yeah, but so the outfit, it's Silent Mountain Outfitters. If anyone wants to Google it, my website will pop up. Contact info is on there. Feel free you can email me at silentmtn@gmail.com. or you can give me a call at 250-464-9565. Again, if I would highly recommend checking out the website. A lot of info there, a lot of up-to-date pictures of the terrain, the animals, the accommodations, what we do, who we are. But yeah, if anybody has any questions or again just wants to chat hunting, I love it. So please feel free.
Let me play some sponsors here real quick, and we'll get this over with, buddy.
Okay, sounds good.
Check out these fine sponsors: Apparition Scent, Chico Outdoors Incorporated, Back 40 Seed Company, Gearhead Archery, Forget Genetics, Trapline Beard Oil, Weeby Knives, Wreck Broadheads, Coon Creek Trappers, Redline Bow Hunting, Rack and Stick, Scout Tech, XL Construction and Renovations LLC, Warhead Arrow Company, Black River Shot Company, Coyote Cords, Rocco Family Farms, Steve Rocco Media, Bustin' Fur Audio. Watch us on Carbon TV. Listen to us every Wednesday on the Outdoor Call Radio. Follow along on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Subscribe to the YouTube channel.